Many believers have asked, why did nothing happen when I spoke with authority? They prayed, they declared, they stood their ground, or at least they thought they did, and the situation did not move. Then condemnation came. Perhaps my faith is weak. Perhaps authority does not work for me. But wait a moment. Before you condemn your faith, examine your jurisdiction. The biblical pattern presents authority as something received and exercised under God. It is never pictured as private, unlimited power. That distinction matters. A person may have genuine authority in an assigned place and no authority at all in the building next door. A guard can direct traffic at the entrance he has been assigned to watch. Put him across town, outside that assignment, and the uniform does not make him ruler of the whole city. Do you see it? His authority is real, but it has borders. Spiritual authority is real. It is powerful, but it is not independent and it is not unlimited. We do not become sovereign because we learn how to speak boldly. We do not become rulers over every circumstance, every timetable, or every other human will. Loud words cannot create jurisdiction where none was given. Now, there are two mistakes here, and we must avoid both of them. Some believers become passive on ground. They are responsible to guard. Fear presses them. Temptation argues with them. Destructive thoughts demand agreement, and they wait for God to make every decision for them. No, there is a place where you must resist. There is a place where you must speak. There is a place where you must obey. But others run to the opposite extreme. They attempt to command another person's choices, guarantee every desired outcome, and treat their preference as though it carried divine authorization. That is not confidence. That is presumption wearing the clothes of faith. So we are not going to surrender authority, and we are not going to exaggerate it. We will not shrink back in fear, and we will not puff ourselves up with spiritual bravado. We are going to discover the ground entrusted to us, stand on that ground, and stop trying to occupy ground that belongs to someone else or to God alone. Say this aloud. I want to use what has been entrusted to me, and I will not pretend to possess what has not. That kind of clarity does not weaken authority. It makes authority safer, steadier, and more effective. And to discover its borders, we must begin at the beginning. Where does this authority come from, and whose authority does it remain? It comes from Christ, and it remains His authority. Notice the order. Christ is not added to our authority as though we first possessed spiritual power and then asked Him to bless it. No. He is the source. We act under His lordship, within His purposes, and independence upon Him. The authority entrusted to the believer is therefore relational before it is operational. It flows from belonging to Him and living under Him. The biblical pattern is consistent. The one who is sent does not invent the assignment. The one who represents another does not rewrite the commission. The representative acts in the name and under the direction of the one who sent him. Suppose an authorized representative arrives carrying instructions from the head of an organization. People do not respond because that representative is the strongest person in the room. They respond because of the authorization behind him. But if he begins issuing orders outside his assignment, waving his papers and declaring, I represent headquarters, those papers do not authorize whatever happens to enter his imagination. Are you following me? His confidence is proper only while he remains within the commission. That is the distinction we must hold firmly. Having authority as an assignment is not the same as possessing power as though we were sovereign. Received authority is not self-created power. Delegated authority is not omnipotence. Say it again in your own heart. Delegated authority is not omnipotence. Some people hear that and become timid. They say, well, if the authority is not mine independently, perhaps I should do nothing. But that conclusion misses the point. Dependence does not weaken rightful authority. Dependence establishes it. The representative can act boldly precisely because he knows who sent him, what he was told to do, and where his commission applies. Submission and authority belong together. You cannot separate them without distorting both. When resistance is joined to obedience, it is an exercise of delegated authority. When resistance is detached from obedience, it can become self-will using spiritual language. A person may speak firmly and still be acting presumptuously. Volume does not prove submission. Confidence does not create permission. So ask yourself, am I acting under Christ, or am I merely demanding my own way and attaching His name to it? That is a sober question, but it is a freeing one. You do not have to manufacture spiritual force. You do not have to make yourself impressive. You only need to know the source, honor the assignment, and act faithfully within it. Now say this aloud. My authority is received, defined, and exercised under Christ. That foundation gives you courage without arrogance and humility without fear. The source is settled. The authority remains His. Now the practical question is this. Where exactly has the believer been given responsibility to act? Let us draw the map then. Not a map of distant places, but a map of responsibility. Picture 4 circles, one surrounding another. The first circle is your inner life. The second is your conduct and stewardship. The third contains your relationships with people who possess wills of their own. The fourth contains circumstances, timing, responses, and outcomes no individual can fully govern. Now notice, responsibility changes as we move outward. In the first circle, you have direct responsibility for what you agree with, what you continue to entertain, where you place your attention, and which voice you obey. You may not control every thought that arises, but you do decide whether to give it a chair and serve it supper. You are responsible for your agreement. In the second circle are your words, choices, habits, obedience, and stewardship. You cannot honestly declare victory while continually choosing what strengthens defeat. You cannot rebuke disorder and then refuse to put anything in order. This is your ground. Tend it. The third circle involves other people. Here you can love, counsel, forgive, encourage, intercede, set an example, and establish proper boundaries. Those are meaningful actions. Do not call them weak. Influence is real, but influence is not ownership. You may speak truth to another person, but you cannot choose their answer. You may offer forgiveness, but you cannot make them reconcile. You may pray faithfully, but you cannot turn prayer into a lever that forces another will to move according to your preference. Their response belongs to their sphere of responsibility, not yours. Then there is the outer circle, timing, changing conditions, other people's decisions, and many external outcomes. You may act wisely within those circumstances. You may pray, you may prepare, you may persevere, but you do not possess unilateral command over every moving part. Think of a piece of property with clear boundary lines. Those lines do not make the owner powerless. They show him where to plant, where to repair the fence, where to remove weeds, and where to stop ordering the neighbor around. Clear borders concentrate responsibility. Are you seeing it? Some believers have been passive inside their own boundary and controlling outside it. They have neglected their field while shouting instructions across the fence. Then they wonder why confusion follows. Take a moment and identify one matter in each circle. What is happening within you? What practical action belongs to you? Whom are you trying to influence? What outcome are you attempting to control? Be honest. Where have you been passive? Where have you been controlling? Where have you confused concern with jurisdiction? Now the map is becoming clear. There are things you must govern, things you may influence, and things you must entrust to God. And we begin with the nearest ground of all, the gate of personal agreement, where thoughts, fear, and words seek permission to remain. What does it mean to guard the gate of personal agreement? It does not mean that every unwelcome thought, every sudden feeling, or every moment of pressure proves that you have already surrendered. A thought may arrive without invitation. Fear may rise before you have time to reason with it. Temptation may present itself boldly, but arrival is not ownership. Notice the difference. Something can speak to you without speaking for you. The decisive question is not, did I feel pressure? The question is, what did I do with it? Did I welcome it? Did I rehearse it until it became the loudest voice in the room? Did I obey it? Did I build it a throne and then complain that it was ruling me? You see, authority does not require emotional denial. A believer does not have to pretend I feel nothing. Nothing troubles me. My hands are not shaking. If your hands are shaking, they are shaking. Denying the reaction does not demonstrate authority. Authority appears when you refuse to let that reaction choose your direction. Here is a practical sequence. First, recognize the pressure. Name it honestly. Second, test where it is trying to lead you. Is it urging you toward fear, accusation, disobedience, isolation, or surrender? Third, refuse agreement with that direction. Fourth, place truth where the destructive suggestion has been speaking. Then, and do not miss this, take the next obedient action. Suppose fear tells a person, withdraw. Do not answer the call. Avoid the conversation. Something terrible will happen if you move. The person feels the pressure. His body reacts. But he stops and says, fear is present, but fear is not my commander. He steadies his speech, prepares what must be said, asks for wise help if help is needed, and takes the responsible step. The feeling may not disappear before the step is taken. That is all right. The victory is not found only in feeling calm. The victory begins when fear loses its authority to decide. Now do not become so preoccupied with guarding your mind that you inspect every passing thought as though you were searching luggage at an airport. Some thoughts need no ceremony. Let them pass. Authority is not frantic self-surveillance. It is the disciplined refusal to welcome, rehearse, and obey what leads you away from truth and obedience. Say this slowly. Pressure may speak, but it does not choose for me. Fear may knock, but it does not govern me. Again, pressure may speak, but it does not choose for me. You are not required to win an argument with every feeling. You are responsible to keep feelings from becoming masters. Recognize the pressure, refuse its direction, answer with truth, and take the next obedient step. But refusing agreement is only the beginning. What happens when the pressure returns tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that? Then authority must become steady resistance. Steady resistance is not one dramatic moment. It is a position you maintain. The biblical pattern joins resistance with submission. Remain unto God. Refuse consent to what opposes His direction. Continue in truth and keep obeying. That means you do not abandon your stand merely because pressure returns. You refused it yesterday. Refuse it today. You chose truth this morning. Choose it again this afternoon. Somebody says, but I thought I dealt with that temptation. Why did it come back? Its return does not prove your authority failed. Repeated pressure may require repeated refusal. A salesman can knock on your door more than once, but repeated knocking does not make him the owner of the house. Do you see that the door remains yours to open or keep closed? Suppose someone knocks and you say, no thank you. 10 minutes later he knocks again. You do not cry, oh, my refusal had no power. He came back. No, your earlier refusal was genuine, and now you refuse again. The knock is outside. Ownership has not changed. Temptation may knock, accusation may knock, fear may knock, the sound may be persistent, even irritating, but noise at the door is not authority in the house. Do not confuse persistence with possession. Now, resistance is not a performance. It is not measured by how loud you become, how dramatic your language sounds, or whether you feel some great spiritual sensation. You may speak firmly, certainly, but settled conviction is deeper than display. Authority is demonstrated by faithful action. That means resistance includes what you stop and what you start. You turn away from the destructive pattern. You stop feeding the thought. You change access where access has become a doorway. You seek help instead of hiding. You practice the response that agrees with truth. You replace secrecy with honesty, isolation with wise support, and delay with obedience. Listen carefully. Asking mature believers for help does not mean you have surrendered your authority. Wise support is not a substitute for your agency. It strengthens you to exercise it. Others can encourage you, pray with you, remind you of truth, and help you build safeguards. But they cannot make your choices for you. Eventually, you must answer the knock. Say this aloud: I can refuse what seeks my agreement, and I can choose obedience. Again, with understanding. I can refuse what seeks my agreement, and I can choose obedience. That belongs to ordinary believers in ordinary moments. No stage is required. No spectacle is required. Refuse consent, remain submitted, continue in truth, and take the obedient step. And that brings us to something we must make even plainer. Authority never excuses stewardship. If you are responsible for the ground, you must also protect it, tend it, and close the gates you have left open. Now notice what the biblical pattern of obedience teaches us. Hearing truth and acting on truth belong together. Prayer does not cancel obedience. Resistance does not replace responsibility. They strengthen you to do what faithfulness requires. Yet there is a temptation to command a problem while continuing the very habits, access, neglect, or choices that keep feeding it. A person speaks against fear but refuses the truthful conversation fear has been helping him avoid. Another resists temptation but keeps every doorway to that temptation wide open. Someone else prays for order and then continues living without a plan, without discipline, and without repairing what has been neglected. That is not a lack of spiritual vocabulary. There may be plenty of vocabulary. The problem is inconsistency between what is being declared and what is being stewarded. Suppose a farmer stands in his field and announces, "This field is protected, but the gate is hanging open, the fence has fallen," and he refuses to lift a hammer because he has already made his declaration. Before long, animals wander in and damage the crop. Was the trouble that he did not declare protection loudly enough? No. He neglected the gate he was responsible to close. Are you following me? Authority does not excuse stewardship. Authority calls for stewardship. Fear may need to be refused spiritually, and then you may need to make a truthful telephone call, ask for counsel, or take the step you have delayed. Temptation may need to be resisted, and then access may need to be removed. Disorder may require prayer, and then a routine may need to be repaired. A damaged relationship may require forgiveness, and then an honest boundary may need to be stated. Now someone says that sounds like condemnation. No, it is exactly the opposite. Condemnation says you are hopeless, hide yourself, and do nothing. Responsibility says, here is the part that belongs to you, and because it belongs to you, you can act. Acknowledging your part is not accepting shame. It is reclaiming the place where change can begin. So ask yourself one plain question: what practical act would agree with what I have been praying? Do not make it mysterious. Perhaps you need to close an open gate have a conversation, change a habit, repair a schedule, seek mature help, or follow through on an instruction you already understand. Name one act, just one, then do it. Say this: my words and my stewardship will agree. Authority governs your response, but it will not perform your obedience for you. You must take the step, close the gate, and tend the ground entrusted to you. And now that personal responsibility is clear, we must face the first great boundary violation, trying to cross the property line and govern another person's will. Another person's will is a boundary you must not cross. The biblical pattern of love calls us to truthfulness, patience, forgiveness, prayer, and faithful conduct toward others. But none of those responsibilities gives us ownership of another human being. You may love a person. You may address that person honestly. You may pray for that person and exert godly influence through your example, but you may not spiritually possess or control that person. Listen closely. Because anxiety can disguise itself as faith. You desire something good for someone, a restored relationship, a wiser choice, a changed direction, and that desire may be sincere. But sincere desire can quietly become a demand. They must choose what I have chosen for them. They must respond on my timetable. They must enter the relationship I prefer. They must become the person I have pictured. That is where concern crosses into control. Some try to bypass another person's consent with declarations. Others label every disagreement as spiritual rebellion, as though anyone who resists their preference must be under demonic influence. Still others claim divine certainty for an outcome that happens to match exactly what they already wanted. Now, wait a minute. Invoking spiritual authority does not turn your preference into another person's obligation. You cannot attach God's name to your anxiety and call the result faith. Picture yourself standing at someone's front door. You may knock, you may invite, you may warn them that danger is coming, you may offer help, you may wait patiently for an answer. But if you force the door, walk inside, and begin rearranging the furniture, you cannot call that an act of love merely because you believe your arrangement is better. Love honors the person while remaining faithful to truth. So what remains within your jurisdiction, much remains. You can speak honestly without manipulation. You can forgive without pretending harm was acceptable. You can refuse to participate in destructive conduct. You can establish appropriate distance. You can offer counsel, help, and reconciliation. You can pray for truth to become clear and for the person to have strength to respond rightly. And then you must allow that person to answer. This releases you from false responsibility. Their decision is not proof that you loved well or loved poorly. Your responsibility is faithfulness in your conduct. Their responsibility is the response they choose. That does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop confusing care with control. Think of someone whose choices have been carrying too much weight in your heart. Now say this deliberately. I will be faithful toward people, but I will not try to become Lord over their will. Again, I will not release love, but I will release control. You may pray, you may speak, you may set boundaries, you may remain available where wisdom permits, but you cannot govern another will. And if another person's will cannot be commanded unilaterally, then neither can every circumstance, timetable, and external outcome be made to obey our preferred result. That is the next border we must examine. This border can be painful because outcomes matter to us. We pray, we act, we wait, and when nothing changes, we may turn against ourselves. I must not have believed enough. Or we accuse somebody else, they ruined what I declared. Or we keep intensifying our words as though another 10 minutes of forceful speech will create authority over something never placed under our unilateral control. But the biblical posture of faith is not sovereignty. Faith trusts God, obeys what is clear, and stands against fear without pretending to govern every variable. Notice that carefully. Confident prayer is not the same as guaranteed control. You may act decisively within your responsibility. You can prepare, speak truth, make a wise decision, keep your promise, refuse panic, and take the next obedient step. But your action may still meet another person's decision, an existing consequence, an uncertain timetable, or circumstances you could not have anticipated. Recognizing that does not make you faithless. It makes you honest about jurisdiction. Imagine a traveler driving toward an important destination. He controls the steering wheel, watches his speed, keeps fuel in the vehicle, follows the road, and responds wisely to what appears ahead. Those things matter. Yet he does not command every traffic light, every other driver, every detour, or every change in weather. Would you tell him that because he cannot command the road, he has no meaningful responsibility? Certainly not. He must drive. He must remain alert. He must make decisions. Limited control does not eliminate real agency. The same is true here. You are not powerless because you are not omnipotent. So do not make promises that exceed your authorization. Do not guarantee another person's future. Do not announce a timetable merely because you want certainty. Do not bind your confidence to one specific external result and then call every other result unbelief. Boldness without truthfulness is not faith. Here is a sound posture. Ask boldly, obey clearly, and refuse fear. Then leave ultimate control where it belongs. Say those three things aloud. I will ask boldly, I will obey clearly, I will refuse fear. Now think of one result you have been trying to guarantee. Perhaps you have been carrying it as though everything depended on your declaration. Release the unauthorized guarantee. Do not release hope. Do not abandon prayer. Release the claim that you must control the outcome. Replace it with a commitment. Whatever happens beyond my control, I will be truthful, prayerful, obedient, and free from fear in the part that belongs to me. That is not passive resignation. That is active faith without the burden of pretending to rule reality. And releasing control does not make prayer for others weak. It teaches us how to intercede with strength, love, and persistence without turning prayer into manipulation. That is where we turn next. There is a false choice people sometimes make. They think if I cannot control this person through prayer, then there is nothing I can do. No. Between control and passivity stands faithful intercession. The biblical pattern of prayer is active without becoming coercive. You can ask for wisdom. You can pray for protection, for truth to become clear, for opportunities to turn from a destructive path, for courage to face what has been avoided, for healing where relationship has been wounded, and for strength to respond rightly when the opportunity comes. That is not weak praying, that is love praying with clean hands. And while you pray for the other person, keep your own conduct inside the prayer. Ask for patience in you. Ask for truthful speech in you. Ask for clean motives, sound discernment, and courage to maintain a necessary boundary. It is easy to spend an hour praying for God to change somebody else and never once ask what needs to become clearer, wiser, or more obedient in me. Are you listening? Intercession does not remove you from your own jurisdiction. Picture two prayers. In the first, a person says, make them call me today, make them agree with my decision, remove anyone who stands in the way. Make this happen exactly as I have planned. The language may sound bold, but the prayer is built around force, timing, and personal preference. In the second, the person prays, let truth become clear, protect them from deception and harm, give them courage to choose what is right. Show me how to speak with love, where to remain available, and where to maintain a boundary. I release their response, but I will not cease to care. Do you hear the difference? One prayer tries to seize the steering wheel of another person's will. The other brings that person before God, while the one praying remains faithful, truthful, and free from control. Prayer may prepare the ground, it may invite, illuminate, support, and strengthen. But it is not a mechanism for overriding a person's decision. Love offers light. It does not manufacture consent. Then let prayer be accompanied by proper action. Listen before you answer. Apologize where you have done wrong. State limits without threats. Make an invitation without manipulation. Offer help without attaching invisible strings. And after you have spoken, allow the other person to answer. Now bring one person quietly to mind. Do not announce the name. Release your demand to control their timing or response. Then ask, what is the next loving action that truly belongs to me? Perhaps it is prayer. Perhaps an apology. Perhaps an honest conversation. Perhaps distance. Whatever it is, let it be faithful rather than forceful. You can intercede strongly without claiming ownership. And now we can return to our opening question. When authority seems to fail, how do we diagnose what happened without falling into either shame or presumption? Let us return to the question we started with. Why did nothing happen when I spoke with authority? Do not answer too quickly. An unchanged circumstance does not explain itself. It does not automatically prove weak faith, strong opposition, personal failure, or divine refusal. Before you condemn yourself, blame somebody else, or simply speak louder, stop and diagnose the situation. First ask, was this matter within my direct responsibility? Were you dealing with your own agreement, conduct, obedience, and boundaries, or were you attempting to govern another will or guarantee an external outcome? Second, was I truly resisting, or was I merely speaking? Words may announce a stand, but choices reveal whether the stand is being maintained. Did you refuse consent? Did you continue in truth when the pressure returned? Third, is there an obedient action I have avoided? Perhaps you declared peace while postponing a necessary conversation. Perhaps you resisted temptation while preserving its easiest access. Perhaps you prayed for order while refusing to repair a neglected routine. Fourth, does the outcome depend on another person's will? If it does, your faithfulness cannot become their forced consent. Fifth, have I claimed a timetable I was never given? Urgency may belong to the situation, but that does not mean your preferred hour has become a divine deadline. Then examine your motive. Am I seeking freedom to obey, or am I seeking control so I will not have to trust, wait, remain patient, or risk disappointment? Now this is examination, not accusation. We are not digging through every disappointment trying to invent some hidden guilt that will explain it. Condemnation leaves you ashamed and motionless. Honest examination gives you clarity and a next step. Suppose someone is praying about a broken relationship. Fear says you must fix this today. The person begins making declarations about the other party's response. But after asking these questions, three things become clear. First, fear must be resisted. Panic will not rule the day. Second, stewardship requires a sincere apology and a respectful invitation to talk. Third, the other person's timing and answer must be released. So the believer resists what is wrong, corrects what belongs to personal conduct, and releases what belongs to another will. The relationship may change quickly, slowly, or not in the desired way. No outcome is being guaranteed, but confusion has ended. Faithful action has begun. Say this aloud. I will correct what is mine, resist what opposes me, and release what is not mine to rule. Once more, I will correct, resist, and release. Then apparent failure becomes an opportunity for discernment, not panic, blame, or louder presumption. And this clarity reveals something unexpected. Boundaries do not weaken confidence. They are what allow confidence to become settled. At first, limits can sound like loss. People hear that authority has borders and think, then perhaps I have less than I believed. But notice what actually happens when responsibility is clearly defined. Confidence grows stronger because anxiety loses its false assignment. If you imagine that faith must control everything, then everything becomes your burden. Another person's decision becomes your burden. Every delay becomes your burden. Every unexpected turn becomes evidence that you failed somewhere. You begin examining your words, your feelings, and your performance with increasing strain, because the whole world seems to depend on whether you exercised authority perfectly. That is not settled confidence. That is an impossible weight. Defined responsibility changes the question. Instead of asking, how can I control all of this? You ask, what is the next faithful action that belongs to me? Then 3 burdens begin to fall away. You no longer have to force people. You no longer have to guarantee outcomes. You no longer have to interpret every delay as personal failure. You can remain prayerful, hopeful, and active without pretending to be sovereign. And look at what remains within your proper authority. You can govern your agreement. You can refuse fear the right to choose your direction. You can resist temptation when it returns. You can order your speech, obey truth, seek wise help, repair neglect, close open gates, and maintain faithful boundaries. That is not a little territory. That is the ground of daily discipleship. Picture a field with its boundaries plainly marked. The person responsible for it is no longer wandering across the countryside, inspecting every neighbor's fence and worrying about land that was never assigned to him. He can cultivate his own field with attention. He knows where to plant, where to repair, where to remove what is harmful, and where his responsibility ends. Clear borders concentrate strength. Now, humility and boldness can work together. Humility says, I accept that I am not sovereign. Boldness says, I will act fully within what has been entrusted to me. Humility accepts the border. Boldness tends the ground. Can you feel the difference? Strain begins to give way to steadiness. Frantic control gives way to responsible action. You do not become passive. You become focused. So keep these 3 words before you. Resist, obey, entrust. Resist what seeks your agreement. Obey what truth requires of you. Entrust what lies beyond your rightful command. Say them aloud. Resist, obey, entrust. Again, I will resist without fear, obey without delay, and entrust without trying to control. Authority becomes more credible and more usable when its limits are honored. Now let us gather the whole lesson, rehearse the map once more, and turn it into a personal rule of practice. Let us gather it all together. Authority is received. Authority is real. Authority is defined. It comes from Christ. It is exercised under Christ, and it remains accountable to Christ. Presumption begins when we leave stewardship and start pretending to possess sovereignty. So stand on the ground entrusted to you. Govern your agreement. When fear speaks, do not give it the right to choose your direction. When temptation knocks, do not open the door merely because the knocking continues. Discipline your speech. Let your words agree with truth, and let your conduct agree with your words. Obey in practical matters. Repair what you have neglected. Seek help when wisdom requires it. Close the gate you are responsible to close. Love people, but do not control them. Pray for them, speak honestly, forgive, offer help, and maintain proper boundaries. Then allow them to answer. Ask boldly concerning outcomes, but do not manufacture guarantees. Act faithfully and entrust what lies beyond your command. Now say these statements aloud, one at a time. I will resist what seeks my consent. I will obey where I have responsibility. I will not control another will. I will entrust what I cannot command. That is the map. Resist, obey, entrust. Bring one present struggle to mind. Where does it belong? Is it at the gate of your agreement? Is it a matter of conduct or stewardship? Does it involve another person's will? Or is it an external result you have been trying to guarantee? Place it in the right category. Then take the right action. If fear or temptation is demanding agreement, make a firm refusal. If responsibility has been neglected, take one practical step today. If you have claimed control over a person or outcome, release that unauthorized claim without releasing love, hope, or prayer. Do not merely admire this framework. Practice it until it becomes familiar. When fear rises, ask, what belongs to me here? When conflict comes, ask it again. When prayer seems unanswered, when disappointment stings, when another person chooses differently, ask it again. What must I resist? What must I obey? What must I entrust? You do not need to be passive on your ground, and you do not need to become presumptuous beyond it. Stand fully where you have been assigned. Refuse fear there, refuse temptation there, speak truth there, practice obedience there, but leave another person's will with that person, and leave God's place to God. Your confidence does not rest in pretending to control everything. It rests in knowing whom you serve, what has been entrusted to you, and how to act faithfully within it. So stand your ground, dependent on Christ, courageous in responsibility, humble at the boundary, and free from the burden of trying to be sovereign.